The Tonight Show studio in Burbank ran cold in June 1973. Television studios always run cold. The stage lights generate enough heat that the air conditioning compensates by degrees that make everyone standing in the wings feel the chill while the people under the lights feel nothing but warmth. Johnny Carson was at his desk, and despite decades of experience with live television, he was more alert than usual. The two guests scheduled for that night were exactly the kind of people who produced either great television or disaster, and in his experience those two outcomes were separated by very little. Bruce Lee was in his dressing room down the hall, sitting with Linda, who had flown in for the taping. Enter the Dragon had opened 2 weeks earlier and was already making the case that nobody in Hollywood had been fully prepared to accept that a martial arts film with an Asian lead could work commercially in America, could draw audiences, could break records. The producer had told Bruce that 77 million people were expected to watch this particular episode. Linda was adjusting his collar and telling him he just needed to be himself, that America already liked him and the movie was the proof. Bruce said he knew. He understood the weight of it, 77 million people forming impressions that would shape everything that came next. He took a breath and said it was just talking, just answering questions, just being honest. Down the hall, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a larger dressing room, which reflected that he had been on the show before and had built a relationship with Johnny over time. He was 25 years old, already Mr. Olympia, already the most recognized name in professional bodybuilding, and he had identified his next objective with the same precision he brought to everything else. Hollywood. He wanted movies. He wanted to be famous in the way that transcended any single discipline. He wanted to be the biggest star in the world, not just the biggest bodybuilder. Tonight was another step in the construction of that, another appearance, another opportunity to make America love Arnold Schwarzenegger, to make the accent and the size and the personality feel inevitable rather than foreign. He was wearing a shirt that showed his arms. That was always the calculation. But Arnold had also come with a plan he had not shared with anyone. He had decided that tonight was an opportunity to prove something specific, that bodybuilders were more formidable than martial artists, that real size and real muscle were more meaningful than kung fu technique, and that Bruce Lee, who would be sitting right next to him on national television in front of 77 million people, was a performer whose skills existed only in choreographed film sequences and not in actual physical confrontation. He had decided, in short, to expose Bruce Lee as a fraud on live television. And he had the size to do it convincingly if the situation could be engineered correctly. Johnny introduced Arnold first. The band played, the curtain opened, and Arnold walked out performing the entrance he had refined across multiple television appearances. Big smile, big wave, acknowledging the crowd with the ease of a man who expected exactly this reception and intended to enjoy it fully. The audience responded completely. He sat in the guest chair, comfortable and in command, and they talked about bodybuilding, about wanting to conquer Hollywood the way he had conquered every other room he had entered. The audience loved all of it. His confidence read as charm at that volume. Then Johnny introduced Bruce. The energy was different. Where Arnold had been large and warm and expansive, Bruce was contained and precise and quietly intense. Not the showmanship of someone who had learned to perform for crowds, but the focus of someone who had spent 26 years perfecting something and whose relationship to that perfection was entirely internal. He shook Johnny's hand, acknowledged the audience, and sat in the second guest chair directly beside Arnold. The visual registered immediately for everyone watching. Arnold at 6'2" and 250 pounds beside Bruce at 5'7" and 138 pounds. The size differential exceeded 100 pounds. The height differential was 7 inches. Every person in that studio and every person watching at home processed it simultaneously and without prompting, and the unspoken question produced by the visual was the same everywhere. Johnny asked Bruce whether what audiences saw in Enter the Dragon was real, whether it involved camera tricks, wires, special effects. "It's all real," Bruce said. "No wires, no tricks, no special effects. Just training. Just technique. 26 years of dedicated practice. Everything you see on screen is what I can actually do, what I've trained my entire life to do. That's why the film feels different, because it is different. It's real martial arts." Arnold shifted in his chair. "Movie fighting is not real fighting," he said, interrupting, pulling the focus. "Real fighting is boxing. Wrestling. Sports with rules and actual competition. What you do is choreography. It's performance. It looks good, but it doesn't work in real life. Against real size, against real strength, against someone like me." The audience went quiet with the specific discomfort of people watching someone be publicly rude to another guest. Johnny tried to steer the conversation. Arnold was not interested in being steered. Real muscle, real strength, that's what works anywhere against anyone. What happens on a film set with camera angles making everything seem fast and powerful, that's Hollywood. That's fake. Bruce's expression remained neutral. You're entitled to your opinion, he said. But you're wrong. Martial arts is real. What I do is tested, not just in movies, but in real situations against real opponents. I've been fighting since I was a teenager. Street fights, challenge matches, real combat. What I know works. Your bodybuilding is impressive. Your size is impressive. But size doesn't guarantee victory. Skill does. Understanding does. Arnold's face changed. Being contradicted in front of 77 million people was not part of the plan. He was supposed to be the one doing the contradicting. He stood up, which was its own statement given what standing introduced into the space, the full reality of 250 pounds rising over a man who was sitting. You think your kung fu works against me? Against my strength? I could throw you around like you weigh nothing. Your speed wouldn't matter. Your training wouldn't help. Come on. Stand up. Let's show America who's real and who's performing. The audience was frozen. Johnny was visibly alarmed. This was live television with 77 million viewers, and a man who weighed 250 pounds was standing over a man who weighed 138 pounds and issuing a public challenge. Bruce stayed seated. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk about my film and discuss martial arts. I'm not making a spectacle on live television. If you want to understand what I do, I'll teach you. But I'm not fighting you here. Not for entertainment. Arnold moved closer, using his height and mass the way he always used them, as a physical argument that required no words, as a statement that his presence made without requiring his voice to make it. You're afraid. You talk, but when challenged directly you back down. You hide behind excuses. That's proof kung fu doesn't work. Stand up and face me or admit that I'm right. The options available to Bruce were all difficult. Walking away validated everything Arnold had said and would be characterized as exactly what it would appear to be. Actually fighting Arnold on live television created violence, liability, and the kind of story that follows a career for years. Sitting still while absorbing the public abuse also read as fear. None of the obvious paths led anywhere good. Bruce stood up slowly, without aggression, without theater. You want proof martial arts works? Fine. I'll show you. No fighting, no violence, no one gets hurt. Just demonstration. Just showing that size doesn't guarantee dominance. Johnny, can we clear some space and make this an education instead of a confrontation? Johnny nodded with visible relief. Cameras keep rolling. He looked at Arnold. Agreeable to a demonstration rather than a fight? Arnold grinned, believing he had already won. Fine. Demonstrate. Show me. Show America. I don't think you can do anything against real size and strength, but go ahead and try. The stage crew cleared furniture. Cameras repositioned. They faced each other at center stage, Arnold at his full height and mass, Bruce looking up at him with the calm of someone who had been in more difficult situations than this and knew precisely what he was about to do. Simple demonstration, Bruce said. You try to grab me. Use your strength. Use all of your size and physical advantage. I'll show you what technique can do. Arnold reached out with both hands, going for Bruce's shoulders, trying to grab, to control, to manhandle, to show 77 million people what 250 pounds of trained muscle looks like when it has something to grip. He applied the approach that had defined his entire physical life. Direct force, overwhelming mass, letting physics resolve the question. Bruce's hands moved before Arnold's reached him. Not fast in the theatrical sense of something exaggerated for effect, but fast in the way that precision is fast, the way something perfectly understood executes before conscious thought catches up. He intercepted both of Arnold's wrists at specific angles with specific pressure, applying Wing Chun trapping in a structural position that controlled the leverage before the force behind it could be applied. Arnold tried to pull back. He could not. He applied more strength, the muscles that had won him multiple Mr. Olympia titles visibly flexing, veins standing out on his forearms and neck, his entire body directing force toward the simple goal of retrieving his own arms. Every physical resource he possessed committed to a task that should have been trivially easy given the weight differential. Nothing happened. 138 pounds was controlling 250 pounds through the application of structural understanding that made the strength itself irrelevant by controlling the angles that determined how it could be applied. 3 seconds of Arnold straining at full effort and Bruce holding completely still before Bruce released and stepped back. That's technique, Bruce said. That's leverage. That's understanding where strength comes from and how to disrupt it. Your muscles are real. Your size is real. But when someone understands body mechanics and structure and angles, size becomes less important and technique becomes everything. Arnold was breathing hard. Not from exertion, the exchange had lasted 3 seconds. From the specific shock of what had just happened to him in front of 77 million people. From the public experience of straining at maximum effort against someone less than 60% of his weight and achieving nothing. That was just hands, he said. A grip technique. Let's test something real. Wrestling. Full body. Real test of strength and size. Johnny was watching carefully, calculating whether this was still within the range of television he could manage or whether it had crossed into territory requiring intervention. But Bruce walking away at this point read as retreat, and Arnold still standing there calling it a grip trick was still the active claim requiring a response. One more demonstration, Bruce said. No injuries. No ego. Just principles. Arnold dropped into a wrestling stance, low, hands ready, the posture of someone who understood the basics of using body weight to take people down. He had 100 pounds of mass advantage and the commitment of someone who had decided that this demonstration was going to prove his point regardless of what the previous one had suggested. He committed to a double leg takedown. Both hands reaching for Bruce's legs, his full weight driving forward, trying to grab and lift and slam. The complete physical investment of 250 pounds of forward momentum. Bruce sidestepped. A minimal movement, executed at exactly the moment Arnold's weight was fully committed forward and his ability to change direction was zero. Arnold's hands found nothing. His momentum carried him through the space where Bruce had been, and he stumbled forward, extended and off balance. Bruce's hand touched his back. Light contact, the gentlest possible addition to the momentum that was already carrying Arnold forward. Arnold went down to his hands and knees on the stage floor, looking up at the cameras and the audience and the moment, trying to understand what had just happened. He had applied his full committed force and ended up on the ground. And it had happened so fast and with so apparent so little resistance that the mechanism of it was not immediately clear even to him. The audience moved from a gasp to applause. Not applause for humiliation, for the technique. For watching something demonstrate itself that should not have been possible. For seeing 250 pounds of committed effort redirected by a touch that weighed nothing. Arnold got up. His face was red in a way that had moved past anger into the specific expression of someone who has been publicly proven wrong about something they stated loudly and with great confidence moments earlier. He had called Bruce Lee a fraud in front of 77 million people. Those 77 million people had just watched the answer. Bruce extended his hand. You're strong, Arnold. Your bodybuilding is real and your dedication is real. But fighting isn't only about size and strength. It's about understanding body mechanics, about technique, about training that teaches you how to make physical advantages irrelevant. That's what I've spent my life learning. Not to be better than anyone, to be complete. To understand fighting in ways that go beyond physical attributes. I hope you can see that now. Arnold did not take the hand. He stood there for a moment. Then he walked off the stage when the commercial break was called, without saying goodbye, without acknowledging anyone, removing himself from the location with the efficiency of someone who has decided that remaining would produce more damage. Johnny salvaged the remainder of Bruce's segment alone, asking about Enter the Dragon, about his training and philosophy, about what audiences could expect. Bruce was measured and direct and precisely the person his response to Arnold's aggression had suggested, someone who did not need to perform toughness because the toughness had already been established and required no further performance. In his dressing room afterward with Linda, he said he had not wanted any of it. Had not come to the Tonight Show to demonstrate anything except his film and his ideas. Arnold had forced the situation and Bruce had made the choices available to him under those conditions. Linda told him he had done it right, defended himself and his art without violence, without injury, without creating anything that could genuinely be called a catastrophe. She said that knowing how to win without destroying your opponent was its own form of mastery. By the following morning, every entertainment publication had the story. Every radio program discussing television was talking about it. Arnold Schwarzenegger had challenged Bruce Lee's credibility on live television, attempted to prove bodybuilding was more formidable than martial arts, and been proven wrong twice in the same segment in front of 77 million witnesses. Arnold did interviews in the days that followed attempting to reframe what had happened, friendly competition, just a demonstration, something other than what everyone had watched. The reframing did not take. The audience had watched him stand over Bruce and call him a fraud and then watched Bruce show him twice that he was wrong. That sequence was not ambiguous and was not subject to reframing by the person on the losing end of it. Bruce died 3 weeks later. July 1973. He was 32 years old. Enter the Dragon opened to the response it opened to, and his name became known everywhere it had not previously been known. And the Tonight Show footage from June 1973 became one of the things people reached for when they wanted to show who he had been and what he could actually do, Not the version constructed for film, but the version that showed up unrehearsed on a television stage and dealt with whatever arrived without preparation or choreography or any of the tools that film provides for making things look a particular way. Years later, asked about that night with the regularity of someone who knows a question will always come, Arnold had evolved considerably in how he answered it. "I was young and arrogant," he said. "I thought size was everything. That my muscles made me the most formidable person in any room. That bodybuilding was superior to every other physical discipline. Bruce proved me wrong in front of everyone, and he proved it twice in about 30 seconds, and the second time I ended up on the floor of a television stage. I learned something that night. Something about what mastery actually looks like and how it doesn't announce itself the way I was announcing myself. Bruce Lee was a master. I was a large person with a large ego. That night showed me the difference between those two things in a way that I could not dismiss or rationalize or attribute to something other than what it was." The episode from June 1973 became part of the documented record of what Bruce Lee was, not a film performer whose skills were the product of cinematography and choreography, but someone whose physical capabilities were verifiable under live conditions on a stage with an unwilling and physically imposing test of those capabilities provided by a man who outweighed him by more than 100 pounds and had arrived specifically intending to prove him wrong. 77 million people had watched it happen in real time. That made it a different kind of evidence than anything a film could provide, because films are constructed and that evening was not. It was live and unrehearsed and the outcome was not available for editing before it reached its audience. And it said, with the clarity that only uncontrolled real events can provide, exactly what it said. He was real. The technique was real. The understanding was real. And the restraint, using the minimum force the situation required and stopping precisely there, extending a hand that the other person chose not to take, walking back to Linda in the dressing room afterward and saying he had not wanted any of it, that was real too. That was the man. That was the evening. That was what 77 million people watched without knowing it was the last time most of them would ever watch him.